Good afternoon. My name is Mark Otto. I am Lannie's nephew, and welcome to his celebration of life. First on the program today is Letitia Collins, Lannie's dear friend and caregiver. Letitia?
Psalms 23, a Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For thy art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Amen. Excellent job, Letitia. Next on the program is something that I'm going to get a lot of enjoyment out of because I'm going to have probably one of the few times I get a chance to introduce a person that is really brilliant at what they do. We'll now have the meditation piece performed by Lannie's granddaughter, my second cousin, Shannon James. Shannon? Shannon, your grandfather would have loved that. Excellent job. Our second reading today will be read by Candace's husband, Rob James, who is also obviously Lannie's son-in-law. Rob, you have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon. This is the peace prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Thank you, Rob. This is the time on the agenda where we ask for eulogies for my Uncle Lannie. We do have 3 planned eulogies that are on the program. Is there anyone here that would like to eulogize my uncle who is not on the program? Thank you. First is one of Lannie's best friends. Jeff Smith will be next, and I think he prefers to be called Smitty. Smitty, you now have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name is Val, Mr. Falk, far from the tree there. Perry asked me to say a few words about Lannie. I don't need to tell you what a good man he was. You guys all know that. What a great father he was. You can tell that by here. Yeah, probably don't have to tell you. He can be a little cantankerous sometimes and a little grumpy. But I do need to share that Lannie was my friend for many years. Most of the time, spending time at happy hours, such as Hughes Oyster House or the front porch or the Elks Club, or with Cats or Shakey's or wherever we went. We're just a group of guys that we'd get together, we'd talk sports, socialized politics, current events, and you know how Lannie fit in, talking all that. So just a great guy. Lannie loved the Cincinnati Reds, and I had the opportunity to spend quite a few games. We used to get some tickets from Las Vegas, and so Lannie would always ask us, boys at the round table, to go with him. But I do remember one game, and it was not too long ago. It was 5 or 6 years ago. I would be my guess that there was a large summer, just a downpour in the 7th inning. And we decided we had already had enough beer and everything. So we said, well, let's head on back. And we went out on the north side of the stadium, and it's raining so hard, it's about 6 inches deep on the sidewalk. Well, Lannie decides he's going to do his Gene Kelly impersonation. And you know, his legs weren't too good the last 10 years or whatever. But he did pretty good. Not as good as Gene, but Gene probably hadn't had 6 or 7 Bud Lights about that time. So it was good. But time has not been well to the round table. And as Perry likes to call it, the Knights of the Round Table. We've lost 3 members in the last 5 years. And, you know, age is undefeated. And he had a good life. And we'll all miss him. And I thank you for the opportunities that you
Thank you, Smitty. Before I introduce the next person that's going to eulogize my uncle, I would like to thank the next two people with all my heart of allowing me to be the MC of today's service. I certainly love my uncle very much, and me having the chance to remember Lannie like this means so much to me and my family. The next person to eulogize, his father, is my cousin, and for the lack of a better term, really my younger brother, Eric. Eric?
Thank you all for being here today. To have known Lannie Ralenkotter, my dad, was to have known a great wit. He was so intelligent and so quick, with timing so impeccable that he could make people laugh with a single phrase or just a single word. He was that funny. He was also a consummate professional who took great pride in his work as a machinist at Car Tool Company for 27 years. He was so intelligent that he could rattle off metric conversions without reference. After Car, he left for a career at GE and finally Meritor, where he was beloved by his coworkers. When he had fallen once, his coworkers took a cue from his sense of humor and brought him a bike helmet to wear to bed. Lannie was a standout athlete at St. Henry High School. He scored 51 points in one basketball game, which happens more frequently now, but it makes his feat even more impressive when you learn that this was before the three-point shot. He was a great coach who was loved by his players for good reason. He was knowledgeable, empathetic, encouraging, motivating, and most of all, patient. I told him many times that because of these traits that I wish he had gone to college and become a teacher, because he would have been outstanding. Whether it was taking Candy and I to music lessons, coaching teams, or taking on the role as Boone County Band Booster president, Dad supported us and is a fundamental reason that Candy and I have been so successful as educators. Although never open about it, and you know my dad, he loved his family, and he was a dear friend to many, as Smitty said. I will always cherish the memories of hanging out with his friends and Candy and later Beverly at Hughes and Shakey's place to sing karaoke with him. He had a great voice, and he loved to sing My Way, as Elvis sang it. As his health declined, Dad could have chosen two paths. As Max Sermon said, take kindly the counsel of years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Or would he follow Dylan Thomas by screaming, do not go gentle into that good night? He chose the latter. He fought hard. As we remember him today, know that he is in a better place and at peace. When you get home today, raise a Hudie delight and think of the funniest thing that he ever said to you. I bet you will both have a great laugh. Take care and be well.
Next, I bet you can guess who's next. For lack of a better term, my little sister. Candace James, would you please step up? Say something very nice about your father.
Sorry, I'm too short for the podium. When I was in elementary school, I had a book called What's in a Name? I loved looking up family and friends' names and their meanings. I always thought Dad's name, Lannie, was a bit unusual. However, one of his best friends growing up was also Lannie, but with a Y instead of an IE. So maybe it wasn't quite so unusual. One day I asked my grandmother why and how she chose my dad's name. Her response was, I let Elmer name only one of our 4 children, and that's what he came up with. I got the feeling she wasn't really keen on it. Years later, I questioned it again, but my Nana and Pawpaw had both passed. My dear Aunt Ray answered my question and said, "Oh, he was named after a famous singer at the time." In my research, I found out that my dad was named after Lannie Ross, a crooner of the 30s and 40s. The handful of Lannies I have known have all been the same age as my dad and also named after Lannie Ross. You can imagine my most recent surprise while sitting with Dad at hospice, browsing through my college alumni magazine, when I saw a Lannie, Lannie, a graduate of EKU, the class of 1999. I would love to get in touch with him and find the origin of his Lannie name. But I would guess most likely, he was named after a grandfather who was also named after Lannie Ross, the singer. Dad was known by many names. This one is really funny to me. Lannie Owl, Uncle Lannie, Lannekins, Landmeister, Canman, I wonder why, Lannie No Show, Pawpaw, and most recently, Lannie Wannie by his dear caregiver, Letitia. But to me, his name was Dad. To me, my dad was invincible. He was handsome, funny, and smart. He was generous with his time, coaching my brother's baseball teams, and also supporting our musical endeavors. He spent countless hours driving us to music lessons and rehearsals and attending our performances. Every Saturday, after he worked a 5 a.m. to noon shift in Cincinnati, making that 6 days in a row of working, he would come home to Florence and drive me right back across the river and over the bridge so I could take a flute lesson at UC's College Conservatory of Music. He would sit in the parking garage waiting patiently. He usually brought a newspaper or listened to sports radio in his car. But on some lucky days, he could actually view a UC Bearcat football game since the parking garage was right next to Nippert Stadium. He never complained about the Saturday events, and I think he enjoyed our Saturday afternoon time together. And that is something I will truly never forget. Dad was very close to his parents and siblings. He was the baby of 4 children to Elmer and Virginia. Aunt Mary Cat, was first. 3 years later, Uncle Donald. 3 years later, Ray Joanne. And lo and behold, 11 years later, Lannie. Legend has it that my Aunt Mary, who at the time was a senior at St. Henry High School, was not too excited about her mother's condition. However, that was short-lived, and Aunt Mary became my dad's godmother. In his primary years, the Ralenkotter house was very active. Uncle Donald and Aunt Rose were also living at 38 Erlanger Street with the family. Dad was blessed to instantly have a little brother when Rossi came on the scene. Although uncle and nephew, they were barely 5 years apart, and it was a bond that's not been broken throughout the past 70 years. As Dad's second mother, his sister Ray Joanne married Tom Otto. Their house was Dad's house. Aunt Ray and Uncle Tom embraced him like a son. As a family, 423 McAlpin was hub central for the Ralenkotter, Otto, and Feldhaus clan. Many, many fond memories and traditions took place there. Unfortunately, last month, we lost our Aunt Ray Otto. I think this impacted Dad greatly and added to his most recent decline. I found out later in life that my dad was a man of mystery. Growing up, I always said I wanted sisters. And guess what? I had sisters. This was quite a surprise. And once I met Kim and Vicki, I was so upset with my dad that I did not know them sooner. Although we don't see them often, it is always seamless and natural. It has been a privilege and honor to know that they are part of our lives. They are beautiful and accomplished, as are their children. Kim recently visited Dad on one of the last days he was lucid. He ate up every minute of their time together. When she left, he said to me, "What about that?" in wonder and delight. Dad was a friend to many, especially, as Smitty said, Hughes Oyster House, Shakey's, Brick House, and on it could go. He loved holding court with his friends, and as Perry said, the round table. They truly enjoyed bantering back and forth and throwing back a few cold ones. Dad's friends were invaluable to him. I always knew this, but I saw their amazing love for each other very recently. I couldn't believe that I coerced Dad to get in my car and go for a ride. We drove all over Covington, watched the Reds on the Jumbotron across the Ohio River, and watched the Mike Fink float by. We stopped by my old elementary school, Florence Elementary, and took pictures. He was too weak to get out of the car, but said, "I really wanted chicken Caesar salad," which I knew was a code word for "take me to the brick house." We arrived, and he sat in the car while I got his order. Again, he was too weak to get out of the car, but the bartender allowed me to take him a cold, refreshing beverage to my car, and the Knights of the Round Table joined him in the parking lot for a toast. Not long after the day was the beginning of the end. I'm thrilled we got a day out, play some Beatles music together, look over old pictures, and he even got to vote. I didn't really like the way he voted, but he got to vote. The staff at hospice swore he was waiting for the election for his final lead, which indeed he did. Election day was over at midnight. He passed about 1:30 a.m. I can't begin to say enough about his caregivers, starting with Letitia Collins, who did our first reading. They instantly bonded. Letitia is the only person I've ever met that my dad would do whatever she said and whenever she said it. Even at the hospital, he refused to allow the nurses to shave him. Perry had brought him an electric razor, which should have been way better than the Vicks they have at the hospital, but he refused. Letitia came to visit, and he got a shave. Every time I talked to Dad or visited him, two things instantly came out. Have you talked to Ray? Have you talked to Letitia? I told him, Dad, you love Letitia more than me. In the end, he proved he was a fighter and desperately did not want to lose his independence in his life. The staff at St. Elizabeth and Hospice were so supportive, honest, compassionate, and caring. I can't say enough. The number of visitors and speakerphone calls we received during the last bits of time were wonderful. Although he wasn't responsive, I knew that he knew we were there. I'm really going to miss my dad, but the last thing I'm going to say is, Dad, aw, this bud's for you.
Well, I can tell you, being his nephew, I don't know that opening day is going to be the same. I don't know that watching a University of Kentucky basketball game is going to be the same, or checking out the Bengals to see what the Bengals do on a given Sunday without thinking about my Uncle Lannie. He was a fine man. He will be missed by many. And I think putting the program together, Candace, you did an outstanding job doing it, because the last song for the day is one that I think is very appropriate to your father's memory. Perry, you picked it out? Okay, I should have said you first. I mean, you know. But I will say this. Linneman would like the family, after this song is complete, to come up in front of yearn and greet people. And if you wouldn't mind, please greet the family. This has been a long, tough process. Believe me, I've been through it twice in 6 weeks. But please, family, if you would, step up to the front so you can acknowledge the people who are here. On behalf of the family, I'd like to personally thank everybody that's here today. Certainly Lannie, looking up from heaven next to my mother. It certainly has a big smile on his face with no pain anymore. So if you would, can we have that last song, please?
So I feel my own curtain, my friend. I'll stay clear, I'll state my case, I'm certain I can live a life that's full. I travel each and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step on the byway. More, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall, and did it my way. I laughed and cried, I had my fill, my share of losing, and now as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, oh no, I did it my way. For God is a man, what has he done? If not himself, then he died to save what things he truly wills.
Well, as you would guess, this is typical Lannie Ralenkotter. Right now, he's in heaven next to my mother, screaming down, saying, "You stoop, you forgot Ross's speech." But because of technology, and my wife, who happens to carry her phone all the time, I do have Ross's message, and I'd love to read it to you now. Sorry, Lan. It is what it is. Monsters, movies, James Dean, movies, and memories. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here to remember Lannie. I am here in Las Vegas recovering from back surgery, but I am composing this and having myself a hootie delight. It's bittersweet for me to write this, bitter because he has left us, but sweet because he leaves us with great memories, fun times, stories, and such a great part of our family story. Lannie was my uncle, brother to my dad, Donald. But what has always been an important part of our closeness is that we were only 5 years apart. I lived early in my life in Erlanger with our family of 4 years because of my mom and dad moved to Las Vegas and my dad to go to work at the Sands Hotel. It was difficult for us to leave, but we all stayed very, very close over the years. My favorite uncle was Lannie. He was always like an older brother to me, especially once I was only a child. As a 5-year-old, I idolized Uncle Lannie and wanted to do everything that he did. He came back to Erlanger for visits and family. We also visited us in Las Vegas. As a matter of fact, I have a memory in the early 70s of Lannie going to Ross's first wedding, and the haircut and the beard was too funny. It was typical early 70s. It was awful looking. He would even admit that. And of course, we always were on the telephone for all holidays and birthdays. It was the best thing of actually not even being there. Monsters, the Gaiety Theater, was right around the corner from my grandparents' house at 38 Erlanger Street. It was a period of the 50s where horror and monster movies were the thing. The Blob, The Thing, but Lannie always scared me to death with the two of those. The first of them was the giant ants that grew gigantic sizes from atomic tests in Arizona and Nevada. He convinced me that he lived right outside of Las Vegas to this day that I was going to get creepy feelings and there was a decent chance that I would get eaten by a large ant. He came back and had blood on his arms and head, and I didn't know whether it was catching it. I ran all the way to my grandparents' house and told them the creature had gotten Lannie. After I learned the truth, I still wouldn't go swimming at night for over the years. I idolized Lannie over the years, and he introduced me to James Dean and his movies. Buddy Holly and the Crickets, Elvis, the Beatles. In fact, the day after they told me that Dad had passed, I had Buddy Holly, Elvis, Beatles festival all day. Abbott and Costello. We even sat next to Tars and Johnny Weissmuller during the show. One summer, Lannie came out to Vegas and was practicing basketball for St. Henry. In fact, I still think he holds a single-game scoring record with 56 points in one game. As I got older, I would bring my family back home to visit the family. It was all summer fun, wiffle ball games. He always tried to run like they at Penson, old Crosley miniature golf, and those great, wonderful Reds games. We are all avid Reds fans, including my children, my grandchildren, and for the most part, our whole family. I could go on forever about Lannie. He was always a fun part of family festivals, funny, witty, great stories. And if you were at Ray and Tom's house and you were at a party, you were guaranteed, after a few beers, to hear Lannie and Rossi do a rendition of Peggy Sue. Lannie was my brother, my friend, and the memories of our family. He will be missed by all of us. Thinking of him will bring a smile to all of our faces. He will never be forgotten. Peace and love, Rossi. Well, I am a stoop, and I'm sorry, Lan. At least we got it in. If the family would please step up to the front here so they can acknowledge the people who are here. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Yes.